And those are the negative things. Is it possible that you're not getting promoted also because people are jealous about you? It's possible. It is possible. I hear from students a lot. They'll complain about a teacher and they'll say, "Oh, that teacher just doesn't like me." And I think, like, well, what'd you do? Like I was talking, I'll leave it at that. Like, what'd you do? Nothing. Nothing. They just woke up that day and decided that they chose not to like you. Now, sometimes it's just personality conflict, but there's usually something. Because most people don't just wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to not like this person, or I'm going to create problems with this one person. I'm not saying that those people don't exist. I'm thinking of a teacher here who I know who really, really, for some reason, hates football players and cheerleaders. And this person is very vocal about it. Does that affect how this person grades, how they treat people during class? Yeah, I imagine so. They're pretty vocal about it, and they're pretty animated about it, but that's a pretty rare case. That's the only person I know on campus who's like that.
What is it?
I'm not telling you. Ask me after you graduate. It's an after graduation question. Because this teacher, not hated. So a lot of students do like this person. But
Do you?
me? No. I don't like him even a little bit. And the funny thing is I've never even met them. There's a reason for it. But it's things like that. Yeah. And after you graduate, if you asked me, I would tell you. And then once I told you, you would say, oh, and a whole bunch of stuff would make sense. Now, is there anything that you can do to get around that? You're going to have to, because that's life. In other words, you're going to have situations like that at work where you just don't get along with the people, or you don't get along with the boss. Why? Is it your attitude? Is it just because of a personality conflict? Is it because they're jealous of you? Anywhere on that spectrum, it could be any of those. It really could be. Frost is talking about dividing the world into these two sections. People who have something to say and can't. People have something to say and can't. Why can't people say things? A lot of reasons, yeah. You ever think about how impossible conversations are? Really think about it. It's tough to have conversations. As much as we think that we're communicating, like one of the greatest illusions in communication is the illusion that's taken place. In other words, we think we've communicated something. We think that we've explained something. This is one of those things as a teacher. When I give instructions and there are people who don't follow them, is it your fault for not following the instructions? Not always. Sometimes I probably wasn't clear with it. You know, especially after you do it for so many times, especially if you do it a couple of times in a day, you might think that you gave a very clear instruction. And the only time you find out that you didn't is when a bunch of people didn't follow it. So there's the question. Why did some people follow it and not others? Was I not clear? Maybe I wasn't clear at all. Some people just figured it out. Or maybe some people just kind of assumed what I meant and they happened to be right about it. You never can tell. You never can tell. And this is the thing about, at least in this context, there's always next time to fix it. But think about, like, if you're going through something, if you have a certain feeling, and if I ask you to explain what it is that you're feeling, not only do you have to completely understand it, which is tough to do in the first place, understand your feelings, but you also have to have the vocabulary to be able to explain it. If your vocabulary is only 3,000 words, let's say, it's tough. If you have a vocabulary that's 6,000 words, it's way easier. If you have a vocabulary that's 10,000 words, it's way easier. But then here becomes the problem. If you have a 10,000 word vocabulary and you're trying to explain how you're feeling to somebody with a 5,000 word vocabulary, you might be as clear as is possible, but then they're not going to understand. And even if they understand your words, there's tone, there's timing, there's a whole bunch that kind of goes into it. I mean, have you ever, how about this? Some of you I'm sure know, this is like nonverbal, but people who have resting bitch face, you know this? I just heard the male equivalent of it. Anybody know what it is? Something, I know, I just read about it, I did it recently, but some of you are kind of like this, where you're just sitting there frowning on him like, I'm happy though right now. Well, is it being communicated in your face? Can you control your face? No, especially if you don't even know what it is that you're giving off. You could be trying to be happy and pleasant. People just don't think that you're happy and pleasant. It's not your fault. It's nobody's fault. It's just it's an unfortunate thing about communication. If you walk into a room and you say to someone, "Hi, how's it going?" and they're like, "Damn, someone's in a bad mood today." What do you mean? Well, the way you said that, you were like, "Hi, how's it going?" No, I didn't. I said, "Hi, how's it going?" That's not what I heard. Well, which one is correct? Because it isn't just what you say; it's also what's being heard, and what's being heard is coming through this thick wall of personality. How do you expect the person to sound? If it's a friend of yours, you're probably more predisposed to hearing it nicely. If it's someone that you don't like, you're looking for all the reasons to not like them. You're looking for the wrong tone. You're looking for the wrong facial expressions. And which of those things are you going to see? Well, whichever one you're looking for, most of the time. Most of the time. This is one of the reasons that first impressions are so important. Because it takes a long time to undo a first impression, because none of us is going to see the world the way that the world really is. We're going to see the world the way that we are. If you remember, I talked a little bit about that last semester. We looked at that castle, right? The picture of the castle, yeah. And we saw, blue skies, white clouds, gray walls, because that's what we expected to see. If you expect someone to be mean and rude, even when they're not, they're still going to sound that way. And this is why when they come off as not being mean and rude, it shocks us. What it should do is shock us into wondering, are they actually nicer than I give them credit for? No, maybe not. Maybe they're just having a good moment, let's say. Maybe not. But, I don't know, maybe. In other words, what are you expecting to see? But this is kind of that circle I'm working my head around with this part about having something to say and not being able to. You have to have an understanding of yourself. You have to have an understanding of your ideas. You have to have access to the vocabulary to be able to do it. In other words, you have to have the words to express it. I'm sure all of you have had this experience to some degree where you're feeling something, where you're thinking something, and you're just like, I can't explain it. I don't know, it's hard to explain. Yeah. If only there was a class in school that you took that was specifically geared toward learning how to explain those things. We should start that class and call it language arts. Yeah. And I asked you guys in the first week or two of school here, why do we do this whole language arts thing? And that's a big reason for it. So that you can learn how to express yourself. So that you can express yourself accurately and clearly and as close to perfect as you possibly can. But that's all you can do. Because half of that is going to also be what the other person hears and how they hear it. And that's the frustrating part. You could be completely earnest. You could be genuine. You could be authentic. You could be telling the truth. You could do everything is right. And yet the other your end of it stops right where their part picks up. And they might hear it completely differently. And we can't really control how other people hear it. We can do the most we can. But that's all you can do, is the most that you can do. And so, this is a problem. Some people have a lot to say, and I imagine that most of you in here have a lot to say. But it's the ability to say it, and the ability to be understood. And so what that might mean, by the way, unfortunately, is that you might be in the wrong peer group. You might have the wrong people around you. You might even be in the wrong family, so to speak. In other words, if you're so different from everybody around you. Because being lonely is not having nobody around to talk to. Being lonely is when you have nobody around you who can understand you or is going to condemn you. In other words, you don't have that feeling of being able to speak freely and express yourself. And so you can never be alone, but you can be lonely all the time. That's possible. You can't have that ability, that freedom and the ability to express yourself. And so that's unfortunate. Because like I said, it might mean having to find a new peer group. You can't find a new family. That's not really possible. But not only having to find a new peer group, but at the very least recognizing that you might have to be that change also, if you follow. Meaning that you might have to be the person who's willing to hear your friends and really trying hard to put yourself into the other shoes. I was taking this class, long story, on hostage negotiation. So if somebody were to, go into the main building, take over the main building, and you had to try to get hostages released. How do you talk to that person? There's a lot there that's really hard to do, man. Like there's a science to it. So I took this class on it one time, and one of the really big parts of it is called forced empathy. Forced empathy. That means that you force yourself to see it from the hostage taker's perspective. You force yourself to see it from their point of view. And not just so that you can understand what they're going through, but so that you can understand how best to communicate with them. Because unless you understand your audience's points of view and perspectives, it's difficult to talk with them, to communicate with them. So I'm going on for 10 minutes. And hopefully what you're finding is that there's a lot that goes into communication. It's not just the words that you use. It's not just how you say it. It's also the time you say it. It's the other person who's hearing it. And that makes it very difficult to really communicate. And that's why when there are people in your life who just get you, if any of you have a person in your life that's like that, they just get you. You don't have to say anything. You just have to look at each other. You both know what the other person's thinking. Or you can just kind of say, I'm just kind of like, oh my God, And they're like, yeah, I get it. You just make noises and they understand each other. And that's why those friendships are really close, because you're understood. And that means you're not lonely. It means you're connected to somebody else. And you don't have to constantly, like there's some people, there are certain friends I have that having conversations with them is like, I feel like I'm writing an essay. I have to make sure that I'm introducing it properly. I gotta make sure that all the language is precise. I feel like a lawyer, like I'm having to present a case to be absolutely precise. And I have some friends that you just throw words out there and everybody completely understands what's going on. And that's just the first part there. And I'm gonna leave out the last part. Most of us kind of understand that last part. People have nothing to say but keep on saying it. Yeah, we all know people like that. Might even be your teacher. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Wednesday.